The cell was cold. The walls were made of black metal that drank in the light. He could not tell if it was day or night. His wrists were chained to the wall, his ankles locked in heavy cuffs. The only sound was the slow drip of water somewhere far away. He was hungry. His lips were dry. His head hurt from the last time the guards had struck him. The human's name was Daniel Ross, but here, no one used his name. To the guards, he was just a number. The Empire didn't care who he was or where he came from. They had captured him. In a border skirmish months ago, or maybe it had been longer. Time was hard to count in a place like this. Footsteps echoed outside. He tensed. 3 tall figures appeared at the door, their bodies covered in silver armor. The guards. They opened the door with a hiss and threw something into the cella, small piece of bread-like food. He didn't move for it. If he rushed, they would laugh. If he ignored it, they would kick him. He stayed still. After a moment, they left, the door sealing shut again. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Then a new sound came, lighter footsteps. Quieter. The door hissed open again, but this time there were no guards. Instead, a figure stepped inside. With pale blue skin, large dark eyes, and a cloak that seemed too heavy for their small body. Daniel had seen this kind before, long ago. VLAR. The figure raised a finger to their mouth in the universal sign for silence. Then they spoke soft, careful words. "We are here to take you home." Daniel blinked. He thought he had imagined it, but then he saw more shapes in the corridor behind the Velari 3 others, armed with strange, curved weapons that looked nothing like Imperial tech. These were not prison guards. These were rescuers. How? Daniel's voice was rough, his throat dry. "No time," the Velari whispered. They moved quickly, pulling a small device from under their cloak. With a soft click, his cuffs unlocked. His legs trembled as he stood for the first time and he didn't know how long. They led him into the hallway. The air smelled of rust and oil. The lights were dim, flickering. The prison moon was old and badly maintained, but the Empire didn't need it to be cleanly inescapable. The Velari moved fast, guiding him through narrow passages. Twice, they stopped and pressed themselves into the shadows as Imperial soldiers marched past. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest. His body still felt weak, but adrenaline kept him moving. They reached a cargo bay. Small ship waited inside, its surface dented and scratched. It looked like a smuggler's craft, barely space-worthy. But right now, it was the most beautiful thing Daniel had seen in months. One of the Velari tapped a panel, and the ship's hatch opened. "Go," the leader said. But as Daniel stepped forward, alarms erupted. Red lights flashed across the walls. Voice in an alien language boomed through the station. Velari shouted something to each other, and 2 of them ran toward the entrance, weapons ready. "Move." The leader pushed Daniel up the ramp. Inside, the ship was cramped and smelled of metal and smoke. The pilot was already in the cockpit, hands flying over the controls. The engines roared to life. Outside, shouting and gunfire filled the air. The 2 Velari guards fell back, firing strange bursts of energy that made the metal walls glow. An Imperial soldier went down, armor cracking. But more were coming. The hatch slammed shut and the ship lurched upward. Daniel grabbed the nearest rail to keep from falling. The pilot's voice was tense. "They're locking targeting systems, hold on." A loud thud shook the ship as enemy fire hit the hull. The Velari leader pulled Daniel into a seat and strapped him in. "We don't have much time." The cargo bay doors opened, revealing the blackness of space. The prison moon hung below them, its surface covered in ugly metal structures. Far beyond, Imperial ships were turning toward them. The pilot pushed the engines to maximum. The stars became streaks of light as they raced forward, but Daniel knew they weren't safe yet. The Empire's weapons had long reach. Suddenly, a bright beam of energy sliced past the ship. The pilot swore in their language and jerked the controls. The ship spun sharply, Daniel's stomach lurching. More beams followed, some close enough to heat the hull. "Shields won't hold," the pilot said. Then, without warning, a massive shadow passed above them. Another ship of Valari warship appeared, gliding out from behind a nearby asteroid. Its hull was dark and sharp-edged, designed for stealth. Energy bursts rained down on the Imperial vessels chasing them. "Go," a voice crackled over the, "Come, we'll cover your jump." The smuggler's ship shot forward. The pilot pulled a lever, and the view outside rippled like water. Space itself seemed to bend. In a flash, the prison moon and the battle behind them vanished. The stars reappeared, calm and still. They were safe. For now, Daniel leaned back, breathing hard. His hands shook. The Valari leader sat across from him, studying him with those large, dark eyes. "You don't know me," they said slowly, their voice steady, despite what had just happened. "But my people know you." Daniel frowned. "How?" "Long ago," the Valari said. "One human ship saved Valari children from pirates. The galaxy is cold, Captain Ross. Few ever risk themselves for others, but humans did. We never forgot." Daniel tried to remember. His mind was foggy from captivity, but something about their words stirred a memory. A mission, years ago. A distress signal. Small, terrified faces staring at him from behind a locked door. The Valari leaned closer. "Saved one of ours once? Now we save you." "Oh." "Why?" The Valari's gaze hardened. "Because the same empire that took you has taken millions of my people. We could save you, but we cannot save them alone." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "You want Earth to help?" "Yes," the Valari said. "You came for one. Will your kind come for all?" Daniel didn't answer right away. He looked at the stars outside, endless and cold. Somewhere out there, an entire people waited in chains. He had seen what the Empire did to prisoners. He had lived it. Finally, he looked back at the Valari leader. "Send the message," he said quietly. "If Earth hears it, I'll come." The Valari gave a small nod. "Then we begin." The hum of the ship's engines filled the silence between them. Outside, the stars seemed almost too still, as if the galaxy itself was holding its breath. The smell of strange herbs filled the air when Daniel woke. The ceiling above him was not metal, but smooth crystal that glowed faintly. He was lying on a soft bed, his body covered in thin silver sheets. For a moment, he didn't know where he was. Then the memories rushed back chains, the prison moon, the escape. The door to his room slid open. The Valari leader stepped inside. Without the heavy cloak from before, Daniel could see them more clearly. Their skin was pale blue, their movements graceful, almost too quiet for someone who had fought through a prison to save him. They carried a small bowl of warm liquid. "Drink," they said simply. Daniel took the bowl, sniffed it, and sipped. It was sweet, with a hint of spice. Warmth spread through his chest. His muscles, still aching from captivity, began to loosen. "How long was I out?" he asked. 2 days, the Valari replied. "Your body needed repair. Empire does." "Not treat their prisoners well?" Daniel stared into the bowl. "That's an understatement." The Valari sat across from him. "We are in the Keller Belt, a hidden station. The Empire has not found this place." Daniel nodded slowly. "So now what? You risked your lives to pull me out." "I don't believe it was only for old gratitude." Valari's eyes held his. "No, it was not." They leaned forward, voice low but steady. 23 years ago, on the Rim trade route, a human patrol ship responded to a distress call. Pirates had taken a Valari nursery transport. They planned to sell the children to slavers. Your people boarded the pirate vessel. You killed every pirate and freed every child. My sister was one of those children. Daniel blinked. His mind began piecing it together. "I remember. Barely. It was a short mission. We didn't even stay to be thanked." "We remember," the Valari said. "And now, my people are in chains again. Not a few children. Millions." Daniel looked up sharply. "Millions." The Valari's voice grew colder. "The Empire took our homeworld 15 years ago. They stripped our cities, burned our forests, and forced our people into the mines of Arthanox in the shipyards of Drelkar. Our fleets were destroyed in the first month. We have been scattered, hiding where we can. The ones they capture, they Do not live long. Daniel clenched his fists. Why hasn't anyone stopped them? 'Cause no one dares, the Valari said bitterly. The Empire's fleets are vast. The other species bowed to their power. We are small, and no one fights. For the small, Daniel set the empty bowl down. You think humans will? I think, the Valari said, that humans will not forget a debt, and I think you will not ignore this. Daniel stared at them for a long moment. Even if I wanted to help, I'm one man. My people won't launch a war because I ask. Then, we show them why they must, the Valari said. We have proof images, records of the Empire's camps. We can send them to Earth, but the signal must be sent from deep space. From here, it will be blocked. Daniel rubbed his face. You're saying you want me to go with you? Yes, the Valari replied. If Earth hears you, they will. Come, Daniel. Thought about the Empire's ships, the cold cells, the millions in chains. He had seen humanity rise to impossible fights before. He also knew what it cost. If we send that message, he said slowly, the Empire will know we're coming. The Valari's dark eyes did not waver. They will know, and they will fear. They took him to the station's central chamber. A large table projected a holographic map of the galaxy. Red zones marked Imperial space. They spread far, their reach nearly endless. A small blue light blinked in a remote sector. That the Valari said, pointing to the blue light. Is the last free relay station capable of sending a message? Across the hyperlanes, without being intercepted? It will take us 2 days to reach it. The Empire will notice us. Daniel studied the map. And when they do, the Valari's voice was calm. We fight until the message is sent. The next day, the small smuggler ship left the Keller belt. The stars outside shifted as they made the jump to faster-than-light travel. Daniel spent the time in the ship's armory, checking over old weapons. Valari rifles were light, elegant, and silent, but they lacked the solid kick of human weapons. He still took one. The Valari crew moved with quiet purpose. They did not waste words. Every time Daniel looked at them, he saw the weight in their eyes, years of loss, of running, of hiding. They had saved him, but it was clear they were ready to die for their mission. On the second day, the ship dropped out of hyperspace near the relay station. It was an ancient structure, floating in the black like a lonely lighthouse. Its surface was scarred from meteor strikes. For a moment, it looked abandoned. Then the sensors screamed. Imperial interceptors incoming, the pilot said sharply. They were waiting. Daniel's blood went cold. How? They must have tracked our jump, the Valari leader said. We cannot run. We send the message now. The ship docked hard against the station's airlock. Daniel and 2 Valari rushed inside, weapons ready. The station was dark, its systems barely running. They made their way to the control room. A Valari technician began connecting the data drive to the station's old transmitters. The hum of the machines grew louder as power surged through them. 30 seconds, the technician said. Outside, the sound of gunfire echoed through the docking tunnel. The pilot's voice came over. Comes. We've got boarders. Daniel positioned himself at the corridor entrance. The first Imperial soldier through the hatch went down to a burst from his rifle. The second took cover behind a bulkhead. The hallway filled with the high-pitched whine of energy fire. 20 seconds, the technician shouted. Daniel fired again, forcing the Imperials back. A Valari fighter joined him, their weapon a silent flash of blue light. An Imperial screamed and fell. 10 seconds. An explosion shook the station. Smoke filled the corridor. Daniel's ears rang. He kept firing until the technician's voice broke through. Message sent. The Valari leader grabbed Daniel's arm. Back to the ship now. They ran through the smoke and fire, fighting their way to the airlock. The smuggler's ship pulled away from the station just as it erupted in a ball of flame, taking several Imperial interceptors with it. In the cockpit, the Valari leader's voice was steady but heavy. It is done. Earth will know. Daniel sat down hard, his heart pounding. Somewhere light years away, human commanders would hear his voice and see what the Empire had done, and then thought the real war would begin. The stars outside the smuggler's ship seemed calm, but inside, the air was tight with silence. Daniel sat in the corner of the cockpit, watching the Volari leader work at a small console. Every so often, they would glance at a blinking light that pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. It was the only sign that the message was moving through. The deep relay network. How long until Earth gets it? Daniel asked. The Volari didn't look up. If the relays are still active, 2 days. If the Empire has cut the routes, longer or never. Daniel nodded grimly. They won't ignore it. The Volari leader's voice was quiet, but there was a shadow in it. I hope you are right, because the Empire will not ignore us now. It didn't take long for proof. To arrive, the ship's sensors lit up with a red warning. 2 Imperial cruisers had entered the system, closing fast. Their silhouettes filled the scanner display, long predatory shapes bristling with weapons. They're broadcasting, the pilot said. We're being ordered to surrender. Daniel almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. If we surrender, we're dead. The Volari leader didn't hesitate. Then we run. The pilot's hands flew over the controls, pushing the ship's engines to their limit. The stars outside stretched into streaks as they jumped faster than light travel. But even in hyperspace, Daniel knew the Empire could still track them if they had the right technology. Hours passed before anyone spoke again. The Volari leader finally turned from the console. The message is still moving. We are clear for now. Daniel leaned forward. What exactly did you send? The leader tapped the console, and a projection filled the air between them. Saw images of Volari cities burning under Imperial bombardment. Rows of prisoners in chains. Children herded into transport ships. There were voices. 2, please. Screams. The sound of boots on metal floors. And then his own voice. Rough, but steady. 8. This is Captain Daniel Ross of the United Earth Defense Force. If you hear this, know that the Volari are not our enemies. They are our allies, and they are dying. The Empire is enslaving their people. I have seen it. I have lived it. I will not forget it. Earth, do not forget who we are. The recording ended. Daniel stared at the empty air where the images had been. That'll get their attention. It will get the Empire's too. The Volari leader said they were right. The next day, while the ship skirted the edge of a barren system, a strange, piercing tone filled the cockpit. The pilot's face tightened. Intercepted broadcast. Imperial command is hunting us. Metallic voice replaced the tone, cold and merciless. Attention all sectors. Capture or kill the human known as Daniel Ross. Alive is preferable. Dead is acceptable. All Volari vessels assisting him will be destroyed. Daniel felt the weight of the words settle in his chest. There. Making this personal, Volari leader's jaw tightened. Then we move faster. But moving faster wasn't enough. The Empire's net was tightening. Patrol ships began appearing in systems they passed through. Twice, they had to hide in asteroid fields, running silent while searchlights cut across. The rocks. Each time, Daniel kept his rifle close, ready for a fight. On the 3rd day, they reached a dark stretch of space where no stars shone. The pilot explained it was a drift zone, a place where gravity currents slowed travel. They were halfway through when the sensors picked up movement. 5 small Imperial strike craft appeared out of the void, their engines flaring bright. They didn't hail the Volari ship. They just opened fire. The cockpit shook violently as the first shot slammed into the hull. Daniel grabbed a bulkhead to steady himself. We can't outrun them here. The Volari leader nodded sharply. Then we fight. Daniel sprinted to the weapons station. The Volari controls were strange, but not impossible to figure out. As the targeting reticle locked on to one of the strike craft, he squeezed the trigger. Blue energy lanced through the dark, slicing into the enemy's wing. The craft spun out. Of control, vanishing into the black, the Volari gunner took down a second, but the others closed in, spitting streams of energy bolts. One hit close to the cockpit, and the lights flickered. They're trying to disable us, Daniel said. The Volari leader's eyes were hard. Then we kill them before they can. The fight was fast and brutal. In the drift zone, there was No room for long chases, just bursts of deadly speed. By the time the last Imperial craft exploded in a silent fireball, the Valari ship's shields were almost gone. Daniel exhaled slowly, his hands still gripping the weapon controls. If Earth doesn't get that message soon, we're not going to last. The Valari leader didn't answer. Instead, they pointed at the blinking light on the console. It is almost there. That night, if it could be called night in the endless dark, the light stopped blinking. A sharp tone filled the cabin, followed by a voice Daniel hadn't heard in months. This is Admiral Kepler of the United Earth Defense Force. Message received. Stand by for instructions. Daniel froze. The Valari leader's eyes widened. The voice continued. Captain Ross, your situation is understood. The Valari will not be abandoned. Maintain your current location. Human vessels are en route. And Daniel, it's good to hear your voice. The cum cut off. For a moment, the cockpit was silent, except for the hum of the engines. Then Daniel leaned back, a faint smile on his face. They heard us. The Valari leader allowed the smallest nod. Now the Empire will hear them. The Valari ship drifted in the darkness, silent and cold. Power was cut to almost everything except life support. From the outside, it looked like a dead vessel. That was the point. Daniel sat in the narrow cockpit with the Valari leader, both staring at the empty black ahead. They were waiting for the signal. The comms had been silent since the message from Earth. No chatter. No updates. Just instructions to hold position and wait. But the Empire's patrols were growing closer. Daniel could feel it like a predator circling. The pilot's voice was low. Something's moving out there. Daniel leaned forward, eyes narrowing. At first, it was only a shadow against deeper shadows. Then, slowly, the shape became clear. Massive ship sliding into view. No lights, no heat signature. Its dark hull swallowed starlight. That's not Imperial, Daniel whispered. A burst of static crackled through the comms. This is the UEDF frigate Resolute. Captain Ross, stand by for docking. Daniel felt something tighten in his chest. Human voices. Copy that. Resolute. Good to see you. Within minutes, the frigate was alongside them, its sheer size dwarfing the Valari ship. Docking clamps locked, and a passageway connected the two vessels. The airlock opened with a hiss. An armored human marine stepped through. Daniel's smile faded when he saw the faces behind the helmets hard, focused. They weren't here for a simple pickup. The Marine captain saluted. Sir, orders are to assess the situation and hit the Empire fast. We've got one shot before they lock down. The sector. Daniel nodded. Then let's not waste it. On the Resolute, the operation briefing was short. The target was an Imperial slave transport currently docked at a fueling station 2 jumps away. It was guarded, but not heavily yet. If they moved now, they could take it before reinforcements arrived. The Valari leader studied the holomap. That transport will have no more than a few hundred prisoners. This is a small rescue. Daniel met their eyes. It's the first rescue. Earth is just getting started. The jump to the fueling station was tense. The Resolute ran dark, keeping weapon systems cold until the last moment. When they dropped out of hyperspace, the target came into view, a long, blocky Imperial transport. Tethered to a ring-shaped station, 2 escort frigates immediately began to turn toward the intruders. Target lock. The weapons officer called Daniel didn't wait for orders. Fire. The first volley was blinding. Blue-white beams tore into one of the escorts, breaking its hull apart in seconds. The second escort tried to raise shields, but a torpedo ripped straight through its engines. The fueling station broadcast a desperate distress signal. That was bad. Imperial reinforcements would already be on the way. The Resolute moved in close to the transport. Grappling arms clamped onto the hull, and boarding pods launched. Daniel led the first wave of Marines through a cutting breach. The corridor inside was thick with smoke and the sharp smell of burning metal. Imperial soldiers opened fire from behind cover. The Marines returned fire in precise bursts. Daniel moved forward with practiced speed, each step pushing toward the prisoner decks. They reached the first holding area. The sight stopped him. Cold rows of Volari, huddled in chains, their eyes wide, too shocked to speak. Some flinched away when the humans approached, till the Volari leader stepped forward. "You are free," they said in their own language. "Go now." The prisoners moved slowly at first, as if afraid this was a trick. Then, as Marines began cutting their chains, the pace quickened. Fear turned to hope, but hope was short-lived. "Commander," the Resolute's voice came over, "comes urgent. Multiple Imperial cruisers just jumped in. You've got 7 minutes before there. On top of you?" "Copy," Daniel said. "We're moving." The Marines split into teams, clearing deck after deck. Prisoners were rushed into dropships waiting at the breach point. The Volari leader refused to leave until every last one was accounted for. By the time they reached the final holding bay, the deck plates trembled from weapons fire outside. The Empire was hammering the Resolute's shields. They freed the last prisoner, a small Volari child who clung to Daniel's arm as they ran back toward the breach. The moment they stepped onto the Resolute, the ship broke away from the transport. The fueling station exploded behind them, a blast swallowing the damaged escorts. "Enemy cruisers in range," the helm reported. "They're locking weapons." Daniel looked to the Volari leader. "We've got everyone." "Yes," they said quietly. This time. The Resolute's engines roared as it jumped to hyperspace, just as a wall of Imperial fire filled the space they had been, in the quiet after the jump. Daniel stood on the observation deck, watching the streaks of light outside. The Volari leader joined him. "You risked much for a few hundred," they said. Daniel's voice was steady. "You risked everything for one." They stood in silence, both knowing the truth. This was just the beginning. The Empire now knew humans were willing to fight for the Volari, and the Empire would not take that lightly. Far behind them, in the system they had just escaped, an Imperial admiral watched the wreckage of the fueling station and the transport. His voice was cold. "Send word to the High Command. Humanity is interfering. That ends now." The alien city was quiet, too quiet. Above it, 3 human warships floated like shadows against the stars. Their hulls were dark, weapons ready, engines silent. They didn't need to announce their presence, the people below already knew. On the ground, the Vorax High Council met in their grand chamber. It was a tall, glass-walled room that once showed a proud view of the city skyline. Now the only view was fierce streets empty, lights dimmed. Every civilian hiding indoors. "They said they came only for one of their own," whispered Councillor Theric, his voice shaking. "We gave him back. Why are they still here?" "High Chancellor Vidrins." Scaled hands tightened around the table edge, because he said slowly, "They have not forgiven us." The memory was still fresh in every Vorax mind, how they had captured a lone human months ago. A soldier, caught in deep space, far from his fleet. They had interrogated him, thinking him harmless, thinking humanity was weak. But then his people came. They came not with one ship, but with an armada that blackened the skies that day. The Vorax learned the truth. Humans never abandoned their own. Now, the human commander's voice came through every channel in the city, calm, cold, unmistakable. "This is Commander Holt of the Terran fleet. You have taken more than one life from us. You will release every prisoner you hold. Not just the humans, everyone." The counselors exchanged nervous glances. Everyone. It meant they would have 2 free captives from dozens of world slaves. Political enemies, even criminals they feared. Councillor Theric shook his head. "It's impossible. If we do that, we lose control. Our whole empire will collapse." Chancellor Vidrin turned his gaze upward, as if staring at the human ships beyond the clouds. "And if we don't," he whispered. Else, outside the city, the ground shook. Human drop pods slammed into the outskirts, each one carrying soldiers in black armor, their visors glowing red in the dust. The Vorax had seen these soldiers fight before. They didn't move like prey, they moved like predators. In the prison district, doors began to explode open. Cells that had been locked for decades were now flooding with freed captives thin. Wounded, but alive. Humans moved with precision, clearing corridors, covering escapees, carrying those who couldn't walk, Some prisoners didn't even know who the humans were, but it didn't matter. Humanity wasn't here for thanks. They were here for everyone. Up in the skies, Vorek's defense ships tried to form a blockade, but the human fleet broke them apart with surgical strikes. No wasted fire, no mercy for warships. The message was clear: stand down or be erased. In the council chamber, Chancellor Vedran finally rose. Order the prisons emptied, he commanded. His voice was heavy, as if each word was a stone. Now, Councillor Theric stared at him. You're surrendering? I am surviving, Vedran replied. Hours later, when the last freed prisoner was aboard the human transports, the Terran fleet began to rise away from the planet. The Voreks watched in silence, knowing they had been spared only because the humans willed it. But before the humans left orbit, Commander Holt sent one final transmission. You thought you could take one of us without consequence. Remember this: when you take from humanity, we don't just come for our own. We come for all of them. The channel cut. The fleet vanished into jump-dash space. And on the ground in the still silent city, every Vurox knew one truth: humanity was not just dangerous for itself. Humanity was dangerous for everyone who dared to harm the innocent. The first explosions tore through the alien city before the sun had risen. At first, Zorathy thought it was an earthquake. Buildings shook, streets cracked, and the air filled with a deep rolling thunder. Then came the screaming a sound no storm could make. From the black sky above, human dropships descended like falling meteors. They made no warning, no broadcast, no demand. They simply came. Inside one of those ships, Commander Hale stood with his squad. His eyes were cold, his jaw locked. No civilians harmed unless they stand in our way, he ordered. We take the city fast. No mercy for their soldiers. The ramp dropped, and the smell of smoke and burning metal rushed in. Stepped out, boots hitting the cracked street. The enemy was already their armored Zorathy guards, their strange rifles glowing blue, but the humans moved like ghosts, silent and deadly. Pulse fire lit the air, but the human armor absorbed most of it. The return fire was brutal Zorathy. Soldiers fell before they even understood what they were fighting. High above, the rest of the fleet moved into position. From orbit, human warships cut off all escape routes. No one would leave this planet without permission. On the streets, Hale's team advanced block by block. A large blast shook the ground ahead. Zorathy tanks rolled in. Their massive cannons aimed directly at the humans. Sergeant Voss grinned under his helmet. I'll take left. In seconds, portable missile launchers were deployed. Too sharp. Streaks of fire shot forward, hitting the tank's dead center. They exploded, metal and fire raining down. The city was falling, but Hale wasn't here for victory alone. He was looking for one Thinka prison block on the far side of the city. According to intel, the Zorathy still had human captives there. Some were soldiers, some were civilians. All were taken when the first human they had rescued told us about. Their suffering, the further they went, the more desperate the Zorathy resistance became. Energy blasts turned the streets into burning craters. Hale's squad took cover behind ruined walls, returning fire with precision. Then over the comes. A voice came through Admiral Corrin of the Zorathy Defense Fleet. His voice was shaking, but still full of pride. Humans, this is your last warning. Leave our world, or you will face our full retaliation. Hale laughed a cold, humorless sound. We are your full retaliation. He cut the coms and kept moving. When they reached the prison gates, they found them guarded by a dozen elite Zorathy soldiers. These were taller, stronger, and heavily armored. They roared and charged. The fight was brutal. Energy blades clashed against human combat knives. Rifles cracked. The air burned. But humans fought with a fury that could not be stopped. One by one, the Zorathy guards fell. Hale slammed his boot against the gate controls. The heavy doors hissed and slid open. Inside were rows of cages filled with exhausted, wounded prisoners. Most were alien, yet in the far-cornered, thin but still alive were humans. One of them looked up, eyes wide, whispering in disbelief. You came back." Hale knelt, cutting the lock. "We came back for all of you," he said. "Every single one." And outside, the sounds of battle raged on. The Alien War Council had gathered inside their grand chamber. The air was thick with tension, every voice low, every movement calculated. Their leader, a tall, thin figure with eyes like molten gold, stood at the center. "They are coming," he said quietly. "The humans will not stop." The room fell. Silent. The aliens had fought many species over the centuries. Some surrendered after one battle. Others fought for years, but eventually gave up. But humans were different. They didn't surrender, and they didn't forget. Once provoked, they came back stronger, faster, and angrier. Out beyond the alien home system, in the cold dark between stars, humanity's fleet was already gathering. Giant carriers, sleek destroyers, and massive dreadnoughts moved like shadows through space. They didn't rush. Humans never rushed when it came to revenge. They prepared patiently, carefully. And with terrifying precision, inside the alien capital, whispers spread about the human they had once rescued. It was a strange story. Years ago, their people had saved a lone human survivor from a wrecked ship. They thought it was an act of mercy, a moment of kindness. But that human had been taken back, returned to Earth, and now the humans had come. Back not just for him, but for the entire alien species. The aliens could not understand it. Why would they care so much for one, their leaders asked. But they had seen the recordings the humans' faces when they learned of the rescue. Their promises to repay the debt, no matter the cost. They weren't coming to destroy. They were coming to take the alien people. All of them, in orbit above the alien capital world. Defense fleets began to position themselves. Thousands of ships formed walls of steel and plasma, ready to meet. The human fleet. But in the back of every alien mind was a deep, cold fear. Because the humans didn't just fight, they adapted. Every tactic used against them became useless the next time. Then came the first signal. It was a voice. Broadcast on every channel and every frequency the aliens could hear. "Calm, steady, unmistakably human, you saved one of ours. Now we're here for all of yours. Prepare them. We are taking them home." The aliens didn't know if it was a threat or a promise. Out in the void, the human fleet moved closer. Engines burned faint blue, massive shadows blotting out the stars. The alien commanders knew the battle would start soon, but deep inside, they also knew something far more dangerous. Humans did not always need to fight to win. Sometimes, they simply took what they wanted, and no one could stop them. And this time, they wanted everyone. The alien capital burned. Bright towers collapsed into the streets. Crushed under the weight of falling starships, fire poured from the skies like rain. The air trembled with the roar of human engines, and the ground shook with every strike. The city that had once stood for thousands of years was ending in a single night. In the middle of the chaos, Commander Reyes stood on the roof of a captured government building watching the destruction. His voice was calm when he spoke, but his eyes were hard. "Signal all ships," he said. "Phase 3, no one gets out." The humans had come for one thing: a full extraction. Every man, woman, and child from the alien people who had once saved a single human life decades ago. But they weren't taking them as prisoners. They were taking them away from the empire that now hunted them. Below, teams of human soldiers moved through the streets, armored in dark plating that reflected firelight. They were precise, unstoppable, clearing paths through enemy forces. Drones flew ahead, marking safe corridors for civilians. Every alien who stepped into the human-controlled zone was shielded, guided, and sent to evacuation points. The alien soldiers fought to stop it. They fired from rooftops, from alleys, from hidden bunkers. But for every shot they fired, humans answered with 10. The attackers fell one after another till the resistance started breaking. On the main avenue, a column of alien civilians stumbled forward. They were scared, confused and exhausted, but they followed the strange, terrifying humans because they had no other choice. Mother clutched her child to her chest. An old man limped, leaning on a soldier's armored arm for support. Above them, the sky split as human dropships descended like black meteors. Their ramps lowered before they even touched the ground, pulling civilians inside as crews shouted instructions in both human and alien languages. From the shadows of a broken wall, a group of elite enemy soldiers tried one last ambush. They opened fire at the crowd. But before the shots could reach, a wall of human shields locked into place, absorbing the impact. Snipers on the dropships answered instantly, and the attackers were gone. By midnight, the city's center was under full human control. The alien leader, wounded, terrified, was dragged in front of Reyes. The leader's voice was shaking. "Why?" he asked. "Ow, why would you burn everything for us?" Reyes stepped forward until they were face to face. "Because once you saved one of us," he said. "And humans. Don't forget." The leader's eyes widened, but Reyes was already turning away. Far above, the human fleet prepared for the final jump. Thousands of alien civilians now filled the holds of warships safe, live, but leaving everything they'd ever known behind. Outside the city, what remained of the alien empire's fleet tried to block the escape. It didn't last long. The human flagship opened fire, tearing through enemy lines like they were made of paper. Warships ignited and spun into the void one after another. Then the order came. Jump. The stars stretched, the fire faded, and the human ships vanished into faster-than-light travel, carrying the rescued people to safety. The galaxy would talk about that night for centuries. Some would call it an invasion. Others would call it a miracle. But the humans knew what it really was, paid back not for revenge, but for loyalty. And if anyone doubted it, they only had to remember the simple truth carved into the heart of every human soldier: we protect our own. Even if it burns the galaxy to do it.